Grand now. Welcome to Quantum Akashic Soul. I am your guide, Elasa, and I want to share with you many topics, but I sat here for a moment to dial into the best one and the delivery that would most serve the highest and best for all who listen to this. So the most recent sharing is about the four corners. What do I mean by the four corners? Lifting up the four corners, lifting up the maps. When we are ascending, when we are lightening our vibration to light, we're coming back to the light, understanding ourselves as light, understanding all that is as light, understanding all that is as energy, holding different vibrational frequencies that will show up as different refractions or reflections or variations or spectrums of light that will show up as wave at times when we are allowing ourselves to expand out into the plane of existence. We're expanding out into that wave. We're not particleizing or vorticing our light, our presence, our energy into form. We are spread out into a wave form. So when we're talking about the quantum, the infinite potential is that wave form, as well as the infinite potentials or probabilities is when that wave goes ahead and vortices in many different frequency patterns, realms, realities, parallel realities. And when it is observed, as we see in the double split experiment, that when we shine photon light particles through two slits, when it is not observed, it is shows up on the screen as waves, and those waves are crossing over since it's coming into two slits. We see how it bends when they touch each other, like two waves from two sailboats creating waves in a pond or a pool of water. Those waves come up and create yet more pattern when they come up against each other. So when we're not observing the wave or waves, they show up as these beautiful cascading lines of energy. Let's say we're looking at a pool, but that when in the quantum, it will go finite. It'll go to a particle of light, a point of light when it is observed. And we could say that that observation is the sum total beliefs, feelings, impressions, expressions, memories that cause that particle of light to vortice in a certain way. Okay, so if I believe something is going to be a certain way, or even if there's a lot of false beliefs or four corners involved, meaning agreements, contracts, arrangements, density in the form of paper, houses, squares, rocks placed in squares, grids, then those dense thoughts, agreements, beliefs, even false beliefs, memories, impressions will then create that vortice to show up in a certain way. Whereas we could do some clearing work and release those false beliefs, pull up those four corners, like release those agreements that we made on paper. Start to see everything as light rather than, seeing a rocking chair as a rocking chair. You start to recode in your brain, allow new synapses to fire and wire together that says, wait, that's just particles of light. Especially when I studied this double split photon light experiment, I realized that when I, again, change my point of view, change my belief system, change those four corners, lift up those agreements, when I look at the particles of light coming through the double split to the screen, it'll change positions. So we can change the way something is going to look in front of us in this ether experiment of such, in this holographic universe. It will change on the green screen of our hologram, of our aura, of the space around us, depending on how we believe it to be, which is why when you really look at science in general, of the past sciences that didn't really understand this concept of location and non-location, that really there is no fixed location, that everything has a potential and probability to be different in every now moment, as well as we look at further experiments of the double split that hypothesize that says, even though you see as the observer that point of light vorticing and showing up on the screen in one place, yes, it could be from the sum total beliefs, thoughts, emotions, etc., that observer has, but who's to say on every other infinite realm of potential universes and parallel realms that are not able for that observer to see with their eye, who's to say that there's not all those probabilities showing up at once, but we just can't see them? And this is what lends into many realities, many parallel realities happening, many potentials. And as we come out of our packets, come out of our fixed locations, belief systems with the latest, I think it was Nobel Prize is the way you state it. I'll put on the slide here if that's not what I meant to say when I put together this YouTube. But the latest science, let's just say, disproves all the local research and proves non-locality. So, we're going to come out of these fixed positions and belief systems, and our brain as humanity allows for us to realize that what we see with our two eyes open is really just a sum total belief of what you believe to be there. Meaning, because we drive by that, corner store so many times, we allow for it to continue to be there because we believe it's going to be there. But if we did the inner work, like we've done for years in the Ascension groups, to go ahead and disbelieve or unbelieve and pull up that there's no store there, then tomorrow when you drive by it, there's nothing there, whether they bulldozed it because that's what you needed to believe in your mind it happened, so you create that kind of potentiality, or that it literally just disappears and you see a parallel potentiality of that corner store gone. So let's come back into this topic to keep these short and sweet of the four corners, that when you think about all the agreements that you've made, all the agreements that your mother and father had made upon your arrival with things like the most recent timeline of birth certificates that are not necessary to exist as an eternal soul, even as a living man or woman or child, they're not necessary. You don't need that. Now society might have pigeonholed you to believe that you do in order to participate in the most recent social conditionings of the way that the commerce system of this old world has existed, from hosting and needing to work, to live, to survive, coming out of an old fear-based model of you need this birth certificate and this Social Security number to actually exist and to survive. So that's a first agreement that you'd want to look at. And it doesn't mean I'm telling you to look at these things and get rid of them. You could rebrand it. You could make them work in your favor and, do the deep dive research, meditation, and asking, what does that mean to you? And is it serving you? And of course, if it's serving you, awesome. If it's serving your ascension and InCENSION, more importantly, as we step into the now of ascending into the heart for this living soul that's speaking to you, is it serving? And in the way that it's been arranged, the agreement, is it serving you? Is it serving your ascension and your full illumination? And your InCENSION meaning your merger back to God. And if it needs to be rebranded, meaning if you need to reparticleize it with a new belief system that says, okay, this is what I want this to mean. This is what this now will equate to. This is how I see the new world society working with this birth certificate and Social Security number. I've heard one friend say, oh, it's my social insurance, it's my social numbers, like socializing. How I socialize, and it works in my favor. So you can just make a big blanket new fire and wire neurons together that says, when I use this, everything always works in my favor, and this is helping my ascension to God. Now, if there's things about it, I'm not going to go too deep on these this short one today about if there's things about those two four-corner documents that are not so-called serving you, not serving your ability to think apple in your hand and let an apple arrive, if they are not serving you to know that you are eternally provided for and that this entire plane of existence and the light particles that you are projecting from thine eye be single will create the perfection that you believe to be there as you accept and know that you are love, God is love, you are light, you are perfection. When you know that and you have that worth and you ask, is this serving that? And if it's not, unconsciously, if it is not serving you, if you muscle test and get that it is not serving you, then just dissolve it. That's you pulling up the four corners. That's you saying, in this now moment, as an eternal soul, as a particle of God, as a God eternal that I am, I now release any of the etherical projections and entanglements with those papers. I departicleize them to pure light, and now I reparticleize them to this. So if it's just you in those papers and they are still serving the collective social system that you're projecting, because in any now moment you can get big enough in your blueprinting to go ahead and recreate the world that you will walk out into, that now they all are bartering. The ones that you come in contact with are living souls, living women and men and children, and they barter. I mean, that could be where you place yourself in this miracle land community that we're working on right now. In my bigger visions, it could be whatever you can think big enough, you can recreate the big vision to be so. Now, I do suggest if you are a big visionary that you don't spend too much time in the old world platform, social media and such, and news that keeps you recreating that which you are watching as the old world. Okay? Those that are big world visionaries that are producing the content of the social conditioning that would have beings not know that they are living men and women and souls, eternal, they know that what I'm telling you, they know that they can think big enough to have things work in a certain way. So they are you, and they have done their homework. They know how to play the game of life. This game is like a big computer, and these are all apps you're learning about. You're learning about how every single aspect of the reality is an app, and you're learning what it is. What does that app do? That's what I hope to get across to you in these books and these audios, is how the game works. And I want to keep this short and sweet because I do have a lot of other short and sweet ones that I really want to get to you, and I am praying that I get the next one out really soon. But let me finish this one. So find the four corner agreements that you have in your life that are quantumly entangled to you, even if they are in a box in your closet like a birth certificate. What four corner papers, contracts, agreements, and arrangements do you have that are on paper? I want you to go through each one and find out if they serve you. Utility statements, right? They're not bills, they're statements. So-called mortgage, death pledge is what it means. Is that serving you in the old world? In the new world, it is being dematerialized because everything, these are God's homes. This is all light particles of God for God, made by the projection of light that is cascading from your pineal gland. This is all yours to be a beneficiary of and receive and enjoy and take care of in guardianship. And as you step out of the water and awaken yourself to these higher truths of what this is actually, what are you agreeing with or not agreeing with? And it doesn't take picketing to do what I'm asking you to do. It takes deep soul searching and deep inquiry of making a list today of what are the papers that you are aligned to, and are they serving you, and are they at their highest level of particleization that they could be. And if they're not, dematerialize them with a simple visualization. It doesn't take much to do this, but an inner meditation station and a willingness to look at these things in the eye of God, and some deep tuning in to find out which ones are serving you and which ones need recreating and which ones need to be dissolved altogether and a whole new belief system be adopted by you, so that you start aligning to that every day with this assignment until it starts to show itself when you open your two eyes and matching, meaning you finally have come to that threshold within your own psyche and allowed yourself to be worthy, allow the collective to be worthy, that now this is the way it is for you and all those that you're in contact with. You will birth a parallel reality that serves you and those that are showing up in your world, in your now time. You will quantum jump yourself and others. And when that old world view comes in, you have compassion for it, for if it's still existing in your psyche at all, and it's still showing up of things that you just rebranded, but it still shows up a certain way that you were letting go of or dematerializing, then you just hold the witness in neutrality. If you haven't seen that video, check it out, Witnessing in Neutrality, around the Quantum Interstellar book. You hold neutrality and you ask, why am I biofeedbacking? Meaning if this holographic field around me is always showing me, is always showing me the sum total of my beliefs, why have I just biofeedbacked that scene of it still existing? Well, maybe because it's going to be multiple versions of realities existing at once. Maybe you will witness others who are not ready for what you've just done. Maybe you're here to hold witness and hold space to watch the different levels of soul's awakening. And maybe what they are still involved in, these other versions of you who are biofeedbacking, showing up in your reality, maybe that's serving them. There's nothing here to judge. But there is a moment now that we are awakening to in our maturity of the InCENSION, that you are being asked to ascend, to merge back to God, to merge into full light in the Ascension. And to descend at moments, the descension, become dense and heavy, only so that you can go, wow, look what that was. Let me look at the root cause. Let me look at the conception point of that density that made me feel that low and that heavy. And maybe one of these four corners made you feel that heavy. Maybe you placed four. Let me end on this note. I had a biofeedback experience just yesterday that was, we would call parallel now, yesterday, that had began a few months ago when I laid down seeds, radish seeds, in the garden. That would be considered laying down corners at a level. Any grid laying, if you are a crystal worker or rock tumbler, anything you lay down in the density of form of gross matter on the ground, furniture, if you position your furniture certain ways, that's all considered laying down four corners in my view, even if it's not a square or a rectangle, even if you laid it in a spiral. A grid, let's just call it that. So laying down seeds is a grid. Okay? So I'm going to make another audio about this one because it's so fascinating. But just to end on this note, I laid down those for a couple months ago, and at the same moment in time, my father brought over a heavy bag. One of those, energy moving bags, and I really was not in alignment with it. But he brought it over, and he was adamant that it needed to be here for us to work with. From that point forward, in the so-called parallel of 2 months that came to yesterday, I kept hearing, take that thing down and go pull the radishes. And why I was hearing that was because I was asking, how in the world do I feel so heavy? I kept saying to my family the past few weeks, I feel so heavy. I feel like I'm carrying around like someone else's body. And I look down and I this is not my body. And I literally put on weight. But it didn't feel like my weight. It felt like two parallel realities overlaying each other, or that I was inside someone else's body and I was experiencing their body. So this one has so much to it, which is why I want to do another YouTube about it. But long and short of it is that I before I pulled the radishes, I weighed myself. I don't usually. I went and found a weighing scale here, and it was 20 pounds over. And I was like, wow. I then proceeded with getting the inner instructions, like I said, to pull the radishes, right? The density, the roots, pull up those four corners of that grid that I had set 2 months prior at the same moment when that heavy bag was being grounded on our land. Then I was guided to go visit my grandmother, who's been in her bed for months, almost years. And as I looked at her, I felt her body, that I was wearing her body. So this, again, has so many layers to it that I want to go into about how you're carrying things around. Okay? But I came back to the house after that and weighed myself again, and I went back to my normal weight, 20 pounds less in one day. And I felt my whole body shifted. I looked down, it was the normal body I'm used to looking at. Okay? I want to keep this to the topic of pulling the four corners, pulling the maps. Maybe you need to move around furniture. Maybe you need to pull up some things in the garden. Maybe you need to move some weeds. Okay, this is also going to lead to about maps. When we were getting last year, a few years ago, burn the maps. It's time for some new, y'all. So I leave that assignment with you because it has enough in it. And I send you so much love, so much gratitude and honor, so much respect for who you are and why you are. May your eye be single. May you illuminate from within the love that you are eternally. Until next time.